What's up, Lions of Liberty fans? You can now support this show on Patreon and get exclusive access to bonus audio and video content, including Conspiracy Corner, Degenerate Gamblers, bonus segments with guests, and so much more. Head on over to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty.
Welcome to Electric Liberty Land, here on the Lions of Liberty podcast, your weekly shot of culture, comedy, and liberty with your host, Brian McWilliams.
All right, welcome to Electric Liberty Land, episode number 88, everybody, which of course means you can find show notes for today's episode at lionsofliberty.com/ELL88. And today I've got a very special guest. He was on Mark's podcast, our flagship show, ages ago, years ago. But I have been itching to get him back on and do my podcast. And is a man I hope you know and I hope you love or will love very soon after hearing his melodious New Zealand tones on this show. It is Fergus Hodgson, much famed for his work with the Antigua Report. He also writes for the Epoch Times. And one other that I'm forgetting the name of.
Gold newsletter, mate. That's
there you go. Sorry, there you go. So there he is. There's Fergus. Welcome to the show, man.
Mate, it's an honor, and as you know, I'm seriously. I love your show, mate. I'm listening every week, and I do listen to the other Lions of Liberty podcast, but Electric Liberty Land is definitely number one.
It's the people's show, you know? I mean, where else can you go and listen to a man drunkenly ramble on about things you know somewhat about?
Look, mate, I was thinking about it today. Why do I like this show? It's because in life, I mean, we already really express ourselves a lot. Right. But on this show, we just let it all hang out. This is, I'm just thinking about the not being able to provide lunches to your staff in San Francisco. I think you discussed that with me back. And I was going, this is the most retarded thing ever, And so when you would talk about that, I just thought, so I'm glad you are addressing these things because someone has got to say it.
Oh, yeah, completely. Well, it's like you just hope – that's where you hope the show, I try to make it funny so people can pass it along and hopefully it'll be entertaining even if it's not people that are libertarians listening to it. So they're kind of like, okay, right. Yeah, I can listen to this show because it's funny, because it's just a guy kind of, shooting his opinion out there uncensored.
Yes, and I suspect that many other people relate, but they just can't. They don't feel like they're in polite society. They cannot speak their minds.
Of course not. You'll be pilloried by the left. So you are in Guatemala. For those who don't know, Fergus is based in Guatemala. And are you in Guatemala City?
Yeah, I'm in Guatemala City. It's the capital. It's actually, this place it's a crazy country. I mean, there's a heck of a lot to say about it, but it has lots of earthquakes. So I've been here about a year, and I don't know, maybe 10 earthquakes. It's crazy.
Jesus, really?
And and so
just little guys or like big quakers?
Some of them are decent. Seriously, the buildings are not so tall here, and that's because historically no one wanted to build tall buildings because they would topple.
Right.
So I've been here about a week, and I was shaking in my bed, and then. A few months later, there was one when we were in a car. And we're going, what the heck is going on? And we're like, this is like, we thought the car was having some problems, but then we looked, we saw the lights in the houses shaking.
I mentioned that bumper sticker, it's like, this van's a rockin', don't come a knocking. But in Guatemala, it's, if this van's a rocking, please call help. We are in dire danger.
Well, and then so there's a lot of volcanic activity, earthquakes, and we had a huge volcano a couple months ago. I lose track, but the original capital of the city was Antigua. But then there was such a devastating earthquake. For some reason, they moved it to here. I guess they assumed this place was slightly more stable, and that's been the way it is. And so Antigua, the original capital, is about 40 minutes out of town. And but the thing about Guatemala is that it's just such a once you get out of these two main cities or the few tourist spots, it's just really third world. It's a different age.
Yeah, I have a client that's based in Guatemala. So basically I work with a nonprofit in my public relations career called Yahad and Unum, and they actually established the first Holocaust museum in Guatemala City. It's called the Museum de Holocausto.
I've not seen that one, but yeah.
No, it's interesting. They're working with local government for like educational purposes, stuff like that. Because I guess a lot of people that are in Guatemala and a lot of people in Latin America in general just don't know much about the Holocaust. Surprisingly,
probably
not really taught that much. Yeah, so
there are Jews here, but. Mm-hmm. I guess they keep to themselves. I mean, they're not very prominent in society,
right? Yeah. But that's what he was saying. Is he goes, once you get out of the city, it can be incredibly dangerous too. So, but wait, before we move on there, I want to find out how you ended up in Guatemala in the first place, because you mentioned this Libertarian University in Guatemala.
Oh man, this is this is an uncensored show, and I'm not spoken about this publicly, what happened here in Guatemala. I've told lots of people about it, but this is Electric Liberty Land, so I guess
this is going to be fucking your way to the top of the university. Is that where it's going? Not me personally, but anyway. So you look, mate. I've been since about 2010. Well, in 2010 early, I took my first trip to Latin America. I went to Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Chile, and it just changed my life. Of course, I'm from New Zealand, so that's a world apart from Latin America. And Americans are more accustomed to Latin America because obviously so many already live up there or have moved up there. And so it just changed my life. And since then, I've been back countless times. And it's not been a road paved with, I don't know, it's not been such a lovely trip all the time. I've had lots of bad experiences and good experiences, but lots of good friends here. And the layers of kind of sugarcoating have just come off pretty intensely for me. Yeah. So I think I should write the politically incorrect guide to Latin America or something like that, because totally, man.
I can lay waste sometimes. But anyway, so I didn't think I would ever come back actually after Argentina, because Argentina is such a screw up. I'm not sure if anyone has been there, but Argentina has just really profound problems. And so I lived there for a year, and it just changed my view of Latin America a lot, because I just saw things were so disorganized, that the ATMs will run out of cash. There'll be no cash in town. The gas stations won't have gas. Just things were just not functioning. And I was going, what the heck, what's going on here? And I had some bad experiences, so I didn't plan to come back. But I was looking to do master's degrees, or a master's degree in finance. And there is a Libertarian University here in Guatemala. It's famous among the classical liberal or libertarian or capitalist community, whatever you want to call us. And it was founded by an ardent free market economics guru, or guy who just loved it, from Guatemala, called Universidad Francisco Marroquin, or Francisco Marroquin University. And no one's really known of it. No one knows of it outside of the libertarian community, really. But they offer this what's called a doble titulación, where you get 2 degrees at the same time. So one from here and one from Tulane, actually. So it's pretty credible U.S. American university. So I thought,
definitely.
And you pay less here. It's about $30,000. I don't know if people want to know, but in the U.S. a master's degree, it's painful. It costs about $60,000 or something ridiculous. Yeah. So I thought I'll come here, pay half price, and go to Libertarian University, and there won't be the whole problem of SJWs, whatever. But this just added another layer to my awareness of Latin America, actually, because this program is a disaster. And the university, unfortunately, I don't really have much good to say about it.
Really?
I feel very sad for the founder. The founder is dead now, but he was a great man. He founded it back, I think, 1971. He was from Guatemala. He went to the U.S. to study. When he came back, he said, we need to change the culture. We need to promote, French enterprise. And he said, we can't just start a think tank. We really need it to be a much deeper impact. So the university was the ticket. But gradually over time, the dishonesty, I hate to say it, but in this kind of, it's more of the jungle in a place like Guatemala. And so people are much more reluctant to trust each other. There's just not as much trust in society. You got to hire lawyers for everything.
Which I guess is why it's like it's so much of Latin America. Maybe because of that, society defaults to looking to government to solve all the woes and be the intermediary. But I'm not sure. I mean, it's definitely one reason why it's poor, and poorer people, I think, do look for handouts more.
that's a really long topic or difficult one. People theorize all the time about why it's so socialist down here.
Mm-hmm.
Guatemala is a rare exception in that it's almost so chaotic and disorganized and corrupt that few people want actual socialism. And also because the indigenous people are extremely, I don't know if tribal is the right word, but traditional. They really stick to each other, stick together and maintain their traditions. And it's almost an impenetrable society in the more rural areas. So therefore, it's not so easy for government to kind of come in and refashion things. They will just resist. Mm-hmm. And they don't really obey things like, filing tax returns. I mean, forget that. So,
well, it sounds like a wonderful place. I love these Guatemalans already.
Well, so for people like me, actually, it has many advantages, right? So just living here, but the point is just that there is not the kind of trust in society here. And people just have a totally different view of, how can I put it? Honesty, perhaps. I'm not sure how to put it gently, but basically in the program, the cheating was just through the roof.
Really? Just like I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Spies Like Us.
No, sorry, man. I've got to see the movie Maverick because apparently that's a must see.
Yeah, it's a must see. Well, Spies Like Us is Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd as these incompetent, bumbling spies. But there's one scene where Chevy Chase is taking a test and just like pulling shit out of his mouth and out of a fake cast.
Oh, I think I do remember this clip from somewhere.
Yeah, right. It's just like ridiculous. So that's what I always think of when I hear top cheating.
These guys don't even hide it. No, the thing is that, I get the sense that plagiarism and cheating are big problems just in universities in general, but people hate to take it to a new level. So what happened was that they would give us, I think the professors all know this is the case. One of them told me that if you try and fight this, the universities don't want to hire you because it just creates complications for them. They just prefer out of sight, out of mind. And so one of the techniques the universities use to avoid this is to give take-home exams, both online and in print. And
so then the honor system that they just think you're not going to look up all the answers, right?
Honor system, which means every exam becomes a group project. And so I just thought this was crazy. And when because I thought, at one time I thought I wanted to do a PhD. Now I've just kind of dismissed that possibility perhaps. But when I remember because we took a trip up to Tulane to do a semester in 3.5 days, which is another insane aspect of the program. They would squeeze a whole semester in 3.5 days. And so he gave us a take-home exam. He said, well, don't work on it with anyone else. I was going, are you serious?
So I presume this is all in Spanish too. So
the Spanish down here was in Spanish, up in Tulane in English.
Well, not in Tulane, yeah, but so you must speak fluent Spanish though. I
do speak Spanish. I wouldn't say, I've been on radio and TV in Spanish, but I still don't feel that as confident as in English, of course. But but he gave it, and then people were bringing those exams to class. Like we were down here at other classes. They're bringing them. They're just changing around and go working on a class. I was going, can we take this seriously, please? Am I the only person who cares about this?
Everybody gets the exact same score, the exact same rights and wrong answers, basically.
Well, I don't know. It's not perfect cheating because they have kind of their own groups, but basically that was just the start. I could go. There are many more examples, and I just thought this. No one's going to take this degree seriously, and I wouldn't even take it seriously myself. And unfortunately, when I told the deans about this, they offered to help me find another university.
Oh wow! So instead of even trying to address the problem, they're just like, "Well, it doesn't sound like you're a fit here." Yeah,
basically.
That's fucking nuts, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it just broke my heart a bit, mate. So the thing is that you just live and learn in life. And my cynicism towards university just continues, really. Because the thing is, I was saying before we got started that we really love to learn. I'm a super nerd, man. I'm reading books and reviewing them all the time. I write my columns every week. I love what I do. It's the best. And yet, in my classes, the other students just weren't about it. They just jumping through the hoops. Yeah. And so it just kills the mood. And so they pulled out of that program, obviously, and I'm working on going somewhere else.
So how did you get then into, what got you motivated to do so much of the writing? Because you put out a pretty epic amount of content. And
I keep track, mate. Yeah. I lose track. This month we put out we put a review of all the content we wrote in August, and it's getting too much. We're going to have to go to either a fortnightly or weekly update because it's just too much for one email. But I'm not sure why do I get into writing? Mate, it's weird because I'm not sure. I think I told you that I hated high school or just school in general. And that's why I became an athlete, because there's one way for me to just enjoy life and not, sick of school. So I went and started training. But basically, I was never that great of a writer.
And by the way, can I just say thank you for being an athlete that is a libertarian? We need more people like us, strapping, incredibly attractive, athletic men touting the ideals of liberty. We got to ditch this whole nerds in a basement stereotype. You
know what, mate? Thank you. They're very kind. But, I actually believe that athletes would be or are more libertarian in orientation.
Right.
Because
it's merit-based, right?
Exactly, a meritocracy. And that's one reason why very few athletes go into academia. That's one of my coaches back in, I went to Boston University. He goes, so few athletes become academics. I'm like, yeah, because we don't play politics, man. We actually just train. And do the job. But where am I going? So what did I go writing? But I actually did not do well at writing at school. And I had to get tutoring and learn in university. And then it just happened that when I was back in New Zealand, there was this really terrible, like a social security system introduced in 2007. And I thought this was insane. And I got really pissed off because the lies that were basically being used to promote it. So I hated this crap, and it was quote voluntary, but you got automatically put into it every time you started a job, and you had to write a letter to get out of it. And I was going, how can this make sense? And plus, anyway, you paid higher taxes if you didn't go into. I was just getting really pissed off. So I wrote this article called "The Deceit of KiwiSaver," which is, I guess, my first article for a popular audience ever. And basically, the local magazine, the student magazine, said, "Well, you got to keep writing," and so I did. And once you start writing for a public audience, going back and running assignments that a professor may or may not look at is more difficult.
Yeah.
It's just less exciting.
Well, be able to write your own content, decide what you want to write about. Because I know, for me, I was never an incredibly stellar student. And for much the same reason, is just, there's my interest level has to be there for the effort. If it's not the effort, then, okay, I'm intelligent. I could pass, I think I graduated like a 3.2 or something. But if you're not motivated, then you're not engaged, and the content's going to suffer from that. And that's why from your perspective, it's great the content you're putting out there, because clearly you're actively passionate about it. And you can tell in the writing. I mean, some of the articles I was reading, you sent me the one, and I'd read another one you wrote fairly recently, I think a few months ago, but just about socialism in Latin America, which is something I wanted to talk
how
about.
Socialism destroyed Latin America?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk about that, because you're sitting there in Guatemala, which hasn't gone all that way yet. But I was reading your article about the Guatemalan Commission that's playing with the UN and the United States to try to push through a certain position as far as the leadership of the country. So that, and then again seeing how socialism spread throughout Latin America and caused much of the immigration problems. And then also this, like the article I sent you, which I want to get into a little later, but the fleeing of Venezuelans into Brazil, which now has put troops on the border. So pick any spot in there we'll start talking.
But I think, let's just put it this way: Latin America is just extremely poor, and in many dimensions, and so this is like I said, people know Latin America is poor, but they just have this kind of general sense. I know very carefully, clearly how poor it is because I hire people here, so I know the salaries they make, and it is just brutal, right? Yeah. So, for example, right, anytime now I could offer someone $400 a month and get someone from Venezuela or Honduras or El Salvador. Lots of countries would come and work for that, no problem. Lots of people in those countries
they'd uproot and actually move, actively relocate just for that salary. Yeah,
I remember someone I was hiring who could speak English, was a decent writer, a smart person. I don't want to say who this person is, but the salary was $600 a month, and then we gave her $50 a month to $650 extra, and this person was just super happy about that. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
So first you got to realize it's very poor here. And years ago, I was in El Salvador at some event speaking, and they had this view of the city of San Salvador, the capital, and I was just thinking, what happened here? Why is it so poor? I mean, so basically, if you go to these people, anybody just go to the United States, you're getting basically a 5-fold increase in earnings, which is no trivial amount. I mean, it's not just 20%; it's 400%, right. Increase. So that begs the question: what went wrong to make it this way? And there are lots of reasons, but it is clear that in this part of the world, there's a very strong socialist or collectivist mentality. Mm-hmm. And it's not uniform, of course. I mean, there are many smart, classical liberals or capitalist people here, and it's not distributed evenly. Places like Panama and Costa Rica and Chile are a bit more open, right? So, but places like Cuba, of course, that's just totalitarian. So, there's a range, but in general, let's say relative to, Canada and the United States, there's just no competition. It's just so much more top heavy. And it's not just the top heaviness. It's just I guess there's a lot of corruption, crime. I mean,
speaking of that, that's always surprises me about this embracing of socialism in Latin America is that you have the utmost corruption in the highest levels of government. I mean, all through government, every tier of it is unbelievably corrupt. And then these people say, well, but we still adopt this socialist mentality. We still think the government should be redistributing. We still feel like this is the best way to handle it. And you'd think those two things would cancel each other out. You'd look at the corruption, you go, well, why are we fucking giving these people more power and more say over what we should do with these resources? It's completely bad. We don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. Those epic words from Archilochus can sum up your ability to succeed or fail in business. I want to recommend Conversation Mat Time to our listeners as a way to hone your one-on-one conversation skills in a role-playing session that can help take you to the next level. During 25-minute sessions, you'll work through the best way to approach that raise, that interview, or that relationship with a practiced professional that will provide the confidence and experience you need to get paid what you're worth or take that interpersonal risk you've never been able to conquer. Just like in jiu-jitsu, the difference between a novice and a black belt is mat time. Train to win. Visit conversationmattime.com and take advantage of a free 15-minute consultation just for listeners of this show.
Mate, you're killing me here. You're officially converted, obviously. But so I still remember when I first went to Colombia, and everyone was going, "Don't go to Colombia. You'll get the narcos will steal you, kidnap you, or whatever." Yeah. And I said, "Well, I don't want
drugs, ship you back."
I don't want those fears to get in the way of my adventure. So I'm going to go, and I didn't even speak Spanish back then, so that was really crazy. But and I don't know if I would do it again. I think I was just naive, but. I was surprised to see how much people really did emphasize elections, that they would be maybe more prominent than, the U.S. is heavily politicized as well, but every little town would have all these big signs if someone's running for mayor or candidate for this Congress district or whatever. I was thinking, don't we all know these people are corrupt? Why do you put so much confidence in this? But you have to, again, it's hard to convey the how different the culture is. So one good example which I use, I can't remember which article now, but anyway, one article I mentioned that child marriage is a good indicator of maybe lack of economic development, right? Because women with fewer economic prospects are much more inclined to get married at like 14 years old.
Right. You're locking down a in theory anyway, somebody that's going to take care of it, work, pay the bills, et cetera. So it's kind of like establishing your stability. So the sooner you can do that, the better off you'll be in theory, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, well, it's just, it doesn't really, just the fact is that particularly in Central America, but throughout all Latin America, like I said, except maybe the little bit more developed countries like Costa Rica, Uruguay, Chile, whatever, teenage marriage is just a big part of the culture. It's just totally normal here. And so you have to realize that people aren't necessarily paying as much attention to what's going on in politics. they'll get rolled up by some populist candidate. But in terms of the actual day-to-day media coverage of what is going on, they don't have it.
Right.
So the U.S. has this, and Canada too has this very elaborate network of activist groups and think tanks and investigative reporters and alternative reporters, and I love these guys. They just don't have it down there. And at the same time, the state media, I mean, the U.S. you have, I can't, this thing just drives me insane that the U.S. even has state media like NPR, and then you have what's called the Broadcasting Board of Governors or something like that.
Yeah.
Insane. They get $1 billion a year to do, media. I'm going, so there's a shortage of media while they're all, going out of.
I've worked actually for that the nonprofit with Yahad and Uno. I've worked with some of those organizations because they're like, well, I was like, well, they're still putting out media, and my client still needs the exposure. But yeah, they're basically it's just propaganda arms. And this one specifically did stories that were targeted at Russians. But again, made by, it was a Russian woman, but she was now a U.S. citizen making content that would help push the propaganda. So it was about the, Russians killing Roma during World War II. Yeah. So that was typically what the focus was on. And to kind of remind them that they were terrible people. So
the crazy thing about these outlets is that their inefficiency is almost impressive. Their capacity.
That's the good thing. Yeah, keep the propaganda to a minimum because of the incompetence.
Well, because I had been working for years writing about Latin America or being an editor, and I went to this course in Miami to study Cuban history, and there was a lady in my class who worked for something called Noticias Martí or Radio Martí. I was going, what is this? And she said, well, I guess it's the government channel that covers Cuba. And I said, well, I've never even heard of you guys. And these guys have a budget, I think it's $33 million. And I was just
a hell of a lot for a radio station.
Yeah, $33 million. I was going, who the heck knows of your existence? I'm a full-time professional covering this issue. I didn't even heard of you. Right. I mean, what? Anyway, so it's known as the most unwatched. They have a TV channel too, unwatched TV channel on the planet. And I just cannot believe it because at the time I had a publication which was super startup, just with like $100,000 or something as a startup budget. And we were competing with them on the Alexa ranking.
And just destroying them?
So we're 300, I don't know what the calculation is, but we were a lot more efficient, maybe 300 times more efficient, know. And it just broke my heart. Because at that time there was some kind of government shutdown, as we have in the US, every 6 months it seems like something's shutting down. And so she was one of the workers who would have to wait for her pay to come in. And I thought, man, I don't think anyone's going to be missing you,
Yeah, no one's lining up. It's not like when they're trying to defund portions of NPR and people are out in the streets picketing like they are here. Protect our government media. But I know also, like was it Bolivia and obviously Venezuela, and the crackdown on any independent journalism is just terrifying. And I don't know.
Well, no. Again, this is the problem, that it's so blatant and outrageous, the censorship, that it's hard to convey to Americans because I know we have Twitter shadow banning and people getting banned from YouTube or whatever, which I don't support, of course. But the level in these other countries is out of control. And one of the more bizarre examples was a newspaper, La Hora, in Ecuador, that did not cover an event, and they got fined for not covering an event. And it was it's a mayor event. He didn't like them not coming. Yeah. I just couldn't believe that it happened, but it did happen. That's a true story.
Wow, damn.
And so also there are scarier aspects too, where reporters, will be murdered. There are lots of reporters.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I saw those. Is it Cuban? I saw a reference to a story. A friend of yours, her father was murdered in Cuba, correct?
Yeah. So this is another, man, we're really hitting the sensitive spots here. But no, so Rosa Maria Paya, she is an exile from Cuba. And her father was this peaceful activist. I didn't know him personally, but all I've read about him is good, that he was basically collecting petitions to have democracy in Cuba, because all these trendy people who love Cuba don't seem to mention that it has one political party.
Right.
You know, I was going,
exactly. And then they point to the socialized healthcare. Meanwhile, it's like, well, they still.
One party, the Communist Party of Cuba, doesn't exactly promote diversity of ideas, and when the ladies, there are all sorts of political prisoners in Cuba, of course, and these people every week. I think after church, a bunch of ladies, they call them the ladies in white or damas de blanco, they go and walk out and get put in prison for, I guess, a few days. And then they do it again the next week. Mm-hmm. I get confused as to why they do this. But, I mean, I guess they're just trying to demonstrate that here in Cuba, you can't even walk down the street. That's about it. But regardless, so Rosa Maria Payá, an old friend of mine, I think it was about 2010. So it's pretty recent that this, peaceful activist was run off the road by Cuban agents, and he and his fellow traveler died. And there are conspiracy theories about whether he actually died in the accident or not, and that many people believe that he did not. The accident wasn't totally fatal, but then they just killed him afterwards. Yeah. Regardless, he's gone now, and his wife and daughter moved to it's called Coral Gables, but a part of Miami, and I think she's a teacher of physics or something, and she is. She's trying to confront the regime with, I guess, more peaceful activism, but I've become much more cynical now, and you don't hate me for being less libertarian, but I think you've got to confront these gangsters, and because these guys are not going to go away peacefully. I just think that they've been there for 60 years. I mean, they were basically a guerrilla group, a militia group, who just toppled the government. I'm not saying the government before was ideal or anything like that, and they're just hanging around for 60 years. And then their sons and their buddies are going to keep holding on to the regime. So it's like a monarchy. And I would say someone has got, whether it be the Cubans or someone's got to come and confront them because they're not, it's a sad fact that these guys are they're gangsters, and that's how they think. And they won't, that's why whenever I hear news out of Cuba, I just think that they're doing whatever it will take to stay in power. And that's more the same. So, but in terms of the free speech element, one good example, I guess, comes from Venezuela as well. When I was there, when the president will speak, and these presidents here have these.
By the way, when were you there? What year was this?
I went 2014, and then I went back, I think, New Year's Eve 2015. So it's like I went twice in 2014.
So fairly recent, though. Yeah, within the.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about going back, but it's getting so crazy now that I don't even know if most of my friends have left now, so I've got hardly anyone to stay with.
Well, I know my old neighbor. I mean, he was from Venezuela, and I was talking to him. His father basically they're able to stay in Venezuela, but because everybody's money got wiped out, obviously. But his father has a talent to research in genealogy. So what he's been doing and making money, like $200 American, but in Venezuela at this point, plenty of money, but he researches genealogy so that people can go to Spain, because Spain said, if you have Spanish background, we'll allow you to migrate to Spain. So people are in droves trying to say, oh shit, I got to prove that I'm Spanish bloodline.
Yeah. I mean, some countries, I don't know about Spain, but I think Italy as well, it doesn't matter how many generations back, so long as you're from there at some point, you can get it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've got multiple passports, so I don't really worry about that anymore. So what happens? These presidents of these countries are so insane. I mean, it's just, again, it's hard for us to convey, but they will have 3-hour speeches. They're like preachers. They just out there and just keep talking and won't shut up. And so,
well, man, I was talking to Mance Rader earlier today because I just did his podcast, and that's what we were talking about. How similar? I mean, church and state are separate, but in theory, but they operate on the exact same principles. So, like you're saying, it is a pulpit, and he is preaching. He is literally converting people and making sure that religion of statehood is ingrained in people's minds.
And if you don't, if you don't abide, well, you're going to hell. Except hell is you don't get your ration for the month or something.
It's a gulag,
Yeah, but when I was there, and Nicolas Maduro, Chavez had already died, but when he puts on a speech, he blocks out every single radio and TV channel in the country.
Yeah.
The only way you can get around this is by getting foreign cable channels. So I was on the radio and I was in the car just trying to change the dial, and every station was playing this guy's voice.
Yeah.
So the level of their intervention, it's hard for me to comprehend sometimes. And I just think the problem is that people here are so accustomed to that now. They hardly know the difference. And that's why I wrote the article recently about why they actually have real socialism, because many of the people from Venezuela in particular, they don't get it. They don't get it. And they come to the United States and they'll vote for a guy like Bernie Sanders. And I'm just
right, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's crazy. I mean, same thing with my neighbor. It was a fucking Bernie. Yeah, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Your family has lost everything in Venezuela. People are starving and you can't get toilet paper to wipe your ass. And yet you're fucking voting for a socialist.
It drives me insane.
Because you think it's just not done correctly. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you something else too, though. So we're talking about freedom of speech. You're, Antigua Report and Epoch Times, I know, is international because we have Epoch Times here in LA too. Yeah. But do you find, like, where's your readership? Is it a lot of South Americans that are finding your content and reading it if they can speak English? I mean, are you getting read in those areas where you'd say, even though we want this side of the world, the English-speaking world, to know about these, the atrocities going on, are people in Latin America, South Central America, are they looking to read about what's happening in their backyard and starting to wake up?
That's a great question. I must admit, I don't know always. So with my podcast with Golden Newsletter, I mean, I haven't looked lately. They do actually give countries, but it's mainly Americans and Canadians that will listen to that. With Epoch Times, I'm still new with them. I've been writing with them for maybe, 3 or 4 months. But they're an odd newspaper because they are started by basically people who oppose the Chinese communists. So
because that's when I first encountered them. They were all Chinese covering, and now they've branched out a lot more. I've seen. Yeah,
and I mean, I don't know how much I can say here because these people actually are my clients, but basically, as far as I can tell, their target audience is the anti-communist types around the world, but also influential people. They really want to be seen as a credible outlet that is well prepared. And as far as I know, it's the favorite newspaper of the White House right now.
Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Are you kidding? Really?
I'm not kidding you at all. I'm not kidding you at all. Yes, that Trump apparently gets 100 copies of the Epoch Times sent to the White House, whenever it comes out. I mean, I think
wow.
I just lost it there for a second. But I think that in DC, maybe it comes out even 5 times a week. I'm not sure. It depends on the place. But all of them go straight to the White House, and he consumes them. So it's very pro-America. I guess that's the counterweight to China. So it's like very pro-America.
Right, yeah.
Which I'm all about. I mean, I love the United States.
Well, I didn't realize that was kind of like the focus of it. I always do a little bit about it, like I said, just from doing PR and my encounters with them getting stories placed. But I didn't realize the purpose of it, I guess. But that makes sense because there is a lot more coverage of free markets and
oh, yeah. Yeah, and I'm actually impressed as to how successful they've been because I just checked today about my article that I wrote about Argentina about a month or two back. And so many other outlets republish from the Epoch Times. It's intense. So they really have done a good job at getting influence or being successful. I don't know how profitable they are. That's another story. But I do respect them. In terms of Antigua Report, it's still very new, but there's actually there is an audience for it in Latin America now. You should know that let's say there's a strong preponderance of socialists or collectivists in Latin America. There's a but to that. Obviously, there's a natural reaction to that in places like Chile, Argentina, here in Guatemala, they've literally fought wars against the socialists or communists. So that means they still remember. And we're not talking Antifa idiots who, are just like,
right. You're saying real armies. Yeah.
We're not talking a bunch of weaklings who go and get they're all like tennis bat and try and hit you or something.
Right.
We're talking actual trained guerrillas, militias in this part of the world who will fight a war against you. So the people here who are more conservative or capitalist oriented realize the viciousness of the enemy. And there's a very solid minority of people who are staunchly anti-communist. And, so I'm not sure I don't know how to get percentages, but there is a strong readership there. And that has been an area where in my work I've sought to reach those people.
Yeah. Well, seeing what's happening in Venezuela right now, and I referenced this story about Brazil closing off their borders and sending the military to the borders to stop Venezuelans from coming to the country. Is that stark reality of socialism at work? Is that having an echo effect throughout are people in Guatemala talking about it? Are you still, what's your feeling in the region? Is it helping people to wake up where they're saying, holy shit, there, but for the grace of God, go away?
I would like to think so.
That's how you sleep at night. You just repeat like, no, they're going to get it. They're going to get it.
Yeah. I wish one country does stand out as getting it, right? Colombia, right? Because they are neighbors. I mean, they share the border with Venezuela and they can just see them pouring in. But not only that, Colombia has fought this, I think, 50-year war with the FARC, or the armed forces of Colombia, the revolutionary armed forces, they call themselves. And so they've got both an insane, dystopian nightmare next door in Venezuela, where people are literally just like walking out of the country, and by the hundreds of thousands. And they have this long-term Marxist insurgent military group or terrorist group, which I guess in recent times they've put down some of their weapons, but now they're trying to play into politics, which is insane. But I just still cannot comprehend that these guys think they can run for politics. But there are still many other militia groups around in Colombia who keep their witnesses. So Colombia is one place where the people, I think, really are learning from this. And the truth is that Venezuelans are everywhere around Latin America. They're even going to Honduras, which, if you're going to Honduras,
you're pretty damn desperate. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it reminds me of when I think a couple of years ago, Nicolas Maduro, the president dictator president of Venezuela, he offered to take a whole bunch of Syrian refugees, and the refugees were going, I don't think so.
We're all right. I had to eat my foot yesterday, but I still think I'm doing better than you are. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so, but in terms of learning, so we see Venezuelans everywhere. The problem is, and this is where, again, you have to almost not take your hat off, but be aware of the effectiveness of this leftist or progressive media, because they really do a good job at attacking the United States, of blaming the sanctions, of just saying everything is an economic war on them.
Right.
And a lot of people who are socialist in inclination, they really eat that up.
Yeah.
So for those people, it's like a lost cause. It's like there's just nothing.
Yeah, that's boggles my mind too, because they're blaming the U.S. sanctions, but meanwhile, Venezuela had this massive oil industry that they destroyed through nationalization. So it's just like, look, you guys will be fine. You don't need anything from the United States. You could have been the prime oil supplier for that entire region, but instead you decided to publicly get into a utility and take over it, and now nobody can upkeep it.
It's a disaster. Yeah, the truth is too that I'm not sure what my position is on these sanctions, but the fact is that the U.S. has been very careful to make sure the sanctions are extremely targeted. So that we'll say, well, we know this guy's a drug dealer and he's the vice president of the country, so we'll put a sanction on him and say, you can't come here.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't really have an effect on the country as a whole. Right. And the one that might have had a little bit of an effect is that I think Americans are not allowed to buy this petro, the new currency. But it was going to be a disaster anyway. So I don't really think...
I don't think many Americans are lining up to buy Venezuelan currency, seeing the inflation rates.
Well, it's like when the U.S. put on a visa requirement for Venezuelans to travel to the U.S. I think they made them come in for an interview or something like that. And then Venezuela they put a reciprocal... We're going to put a requirement that Americans want to come here, and there was all these image memes. All the queues are so long to go to Venezuela.
But I mean, I'd say in general, though, I could see I'm typically, like you said, you weren't sure your position on sanctions in general, but I'm typically always against them. Like you're saying, if they're putting on one guy, I don't really give a shit about that. But, because it hurts the people more than anything. But, in Venezuela's case, there's no sanction that the United States can put on them that can make their lot worse than what their own government's already done to them.
Well, I see. In the case, there's a very bizarre recent instance of sanctions that fills that description. And that's when
Oh, I think I lost you. Okay, we got Fergus back. So we're talking about sanctions, and you said there was one example of sanctions that you could think of those in regards to harming the people. Is that what you're talking about, like harming the populace?
Yeah, basically, yeah. So Trump has got a personality. Like, how can I put this? He's in an ego battle with the president of Turkey, who
and everybody else in the world, for that matter.
Sure, yeah. And so the fact is that this president or prime minister, I'm sorry, I should know the precise term for this guy. He is insane. This guy is psycho. We all know this. This guy Erdogan,
he's completely mad.
Yeah, came to the U.S. for a speaking engagement. There were some gentle protests outside the event. I mean, about 50 people. Not exactly a big deal. He had about as many security guards as there were protesters come out and kick their asses. You know?
Yeah. I
couldn't believe it. They were fighting with the U.S. police. Like, the U.S. police were trying to protect the protesters, and his security guards were going there just like kicking them, pulling their sign. I'm like, what is going on here? You know, this guy, let's agree, like the guy of Turkey is crazy. Totally crazy. But he has some kind of political prisoner who's an American who's lived in Turkey for, I think, a decade or a long time. And Trump does not like this. And Trump is just pissed off about it. And he is basically not going to war with Turkey, but ramping up all sorts of sanctions. Not just over that one guy, but he's largely like a wedge issue there.
Yeah, Turkey's been such a foothold for America in the region too. That's like you'd see people bend over backwards, like the Obama administration, to try to keep relations with Turkey good, especially because they were can't think of the word because I'm hungover, secular. And now, under Erdogan, though, they were secular. Now they're becoming, it's Islamic nation, which is terrifying on any number of levels, not just for foreign relations, but for the people there as well. I mean, his crackdown on the media and I mean, just what's happened in Turkey is
I've not followed the Turkey situation as closely as others, but I have seen him ranked very poorly in press freedom rankings. So, so I agree with that. There is a little bit of, I'm not sure whether it's ambiguity or maybe a bit of nuance to the use of sanctions in the case of Canada. Now, the truth is that the Canadians are just extremely dependent on the United States as a consumer or export market.
Right.
And oddly enough, I'm not sure whether you followed this, Trump may actually liberate Canada to some degree. This is weird, but...
Okay.
Because basically,
by saying you have to depend on different areas of the world for your exports now?
No. Basically, actually, I'm going to write an article about this tomorrow, but Canadians have a weird sense of openness that they believe the country's so open, and it's just not true. And because in the case of New Zealand, my country, we had a kind of a financial crisis back in the 80s, and then we had this big deregulation and privatization scheme, which kind of cleaned house a bit. Yeah. Canada never really had that. It had a few little bits of that. Anyway, so it's well known now that the Canadian, I think it's chicken, eggs, and dairy, and maybe a few others had enormous tariffs. I mean, we're talking 300% tariffs, right? So basically, no one outside of Canada can compete with that. Right. And then they have they call it supply management. It just means that each province has a cartel. Where it's like trying to get a taxi medallion in New York, where if you want to have a cow to milk it, you've got to buy someone else's right to have a cow. And these rights to have a cow, it's like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 per cow.
God damn,
it's insane. That's how lucrative these cartels are.
Oh yeah.
And Trump, to his credit, has identified this and said, you know what, Canada, that's not acceptable. This is, again, like, we wanted to sell our milk and dairy or our eggs to you guys. Stop this. And thus far, the Canadian, I don't even know what to call that guy, but the Canadian Prime Minister, that guy,
Trudeau,
I don't know how the heck this guy gets elected. And the craziest thing about that guy is that there's a good chance he'll get reelected. Yeah, that tells you how problematic.
It's like that. It's like just like here though. It's like the constant back and forth. They have the same kind of duopoly system going on where it's like the two parties, and they had a conservative president before Trudeau, so it's just the flopping back, back and forth, just like what happens here.
Well, yeah. I mean, the last prime minister, Stephen Harper. he was much more pro-American than, say, Barack Obama. Let's put it that way. So, and he wasn't he had his own problems. Apparently, he's in his private life, he's actually quite Ayn Randian, but he just would never really show that publicly. And he's a political animal, but he had a hard time because in Canada, you don't really have the big, like the US, you have all these, the interior red states, the Kansas, Oklahoma, all these states that are just solid kind of traditional conservative states or whatever. Canada, you've got 3 prairie provinces which are sparsely populated, and then you've got Quebec and and BC. You've got all the rest which just dominate the country. So you've got a very limited pool to draw in terms of support. So he had to try and that guy Harper created this interesting mix to keep in power, and he lost that, of course. And now the new guy is a pathetic. I mean, so the new guy's pathetic, but his opponent is maybe just as bad, because when Trudeau said he wasn't going to let up on these cartels, or he said he wasn't going to let up, but then there was like privately some inkling that maybe he would a little bit. The Conservative Party, like the Rhino Party of Canada, their candidate or leader came out with this big statement that we will not compromise on this, and how can the Liberals give a good way to the cartels, let the cartels go, which just blew my mind. I was going, so what's the point of all this? And just recently, so basically, but the point is, though, that such has been the pressure from old Trump on this issue that he's made it very prominent in Canada. And almost every Canadian knows it's not in their interests. Yeah. But they also know that there's a whole bunch of lobbyists in there who are just fighting to protect this. And there was a tweet recently about at the Conservative Party meeting, there were 25 lobbyists just for the dairy industry, which is ridiculous, of course. And so there's a Quebec guy, a Frenchie or French Canadian, who has made a breakaway, and he's starting a new party to challenge them. He's kind of the classical liberal or free market guy, and I like him a lot. So
nice.
It's
you remember his
time in Canada.
Any idea what his name is off the top of your head? I'd be curious to look him up.
Maxime Bernier. Yeah, you should look him up. And he's wrote Maxime Bernier, and he wrote an article, Why I'm Leaving or Why I Left the Conservative Party of Canada. And it's just beautifully written, very, very clear. He just said, look, I've been in here for a decade or something like that, and now I'm not even allowed to talk about these cartels. I'm just being pushed aside. And he said, what's the point? Even if we win the election, nothing's going to change. Right. So this pressure from Trump is particularly actually making this a big issue in Canada and a political difficulty. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it could be that the pressure from Trump actually does cause these cartels to go, which would be a beautiful thing for Canada. I would love that. I think we can. In a reflective sense,
I was hoping that Trump would wake people up in the United States as well, because whether or not you agree with him on an issue or not, at least it's like raising awareness too. Like, I mean, look at we're talking about the news media, and the quote unquote fake news, and the massive media bias, the way things are covered, the way that the media has covered up for so many wars that have been started, have been complicit in pushing forward through, just blatant untruths on behalf of government. So it's like, it's the silver lining that Trump does bring to the table because of the visceral reaction people have to him. But also, he's done a pretty decent job with deregulation and opening people's eyes up to just how things are working. So I give him a lot of credit in regards to that, whether it's intentional or not on his part.
Yeah, I must. I've got to agree with you there. I'm just going to close some items just to make sure I'm not hurting the connection. But the
that's all right. We'll wrap it up in about 5 minutes anyway. But we're going to make it through and not freeze again. I think we can do it.
Yeah.
Well, the Guatemalan government knows this is happening. They're terrified of you, and they're trying to shut this down.
Well, the scary thing actually is that recently, I don't know if I should put these things out here, but recently my Reddit account, I do use Reddit a ton, of course, like many people. And I'm trying to go out to vote, but there just aren't as many people on there. But people in Guatemala now know who I am.
Oh, interesting.
It's not a good thing. Because I have this now reputation, and the thing is, people just kind of fabricate these reputations to make them much more than I think. They think I'm like this very powerful man. I'm just at my home writing articles, and editing.
They're picturing like headed like the New York Times, like in a top hat and like an old school fucking pocket watch that you're running your empire.
They imagine some fancy, high building with me and beautiful office, but it's just not that like that at all. I'm just like a regular person trying to make a living and doing what I really believe in.
You can disperse that illusion by just telling them, be like, look, if you want to know really where I'm at in life, I was just on Electric Liberty Land. So,
Yeah,
my stocks are that great.
Yeah. But in terms of the fake news though, I mean, Trump, obviously, he gives them a lot of dumb meat to go after. I mean, like I said, I don't really care about his whole, marital things, but it just seemed a bit stupid. He kind of gave them meat to go after by paying her off. I mean, anyway, it was just a bit foolish, but at the same time, I do agree with him that the whole fake news thing, there is something there. I mean, that's why it's caught on, because people know that you've got a bunch of race hustlers, for example, in the media, like Jorge Ramos, and it's just, I can't stand watching places like CNN. It just drives me crazy. So I don't know how they're taken seriously. So he is right about some of that. And when people call him as censoring or having an attack on the truth, look, Trump is creative with the truth. He uses hyperbole. Oh man, I've lost you. But
I'm still here. I might have froze, but I'm still. I can still hear you. Can you hear me still?
Okay. Oh, I can hear you now. Yeah. So that's great. Yeah. So basically, Trump uses hyperbole. That's a fact. I mean, it's politics. I'm not exactly surprised by that. But in terms, like I said, if you actually know countries that actually do have censorship, it's not exactly
not quite apples and apples there. When you're actively blacking out media sites and have stormtroopers kicking in the doors of your
and the thing is too that he actually. I mean, not that we don't have to take a position on Alex Jones, but he actually went on Alex Jones. I think even twice. He went on
back in the day before he was presidential candidate, presumably.
No, when he was candidate. Really?
Oh, God, I got to look this up now.
You got to look it up, man. Yeah, because I mean, Alex Jones been kind of crazy about the whole Trump campaign.
Yep.
So Trump went on the Alex Jones show. He also went on Reddit. He did an AMA, Ask Me Anything, on Reddit. Which is just, I mean, I just think that's just beautiful that he is engaged. He had the courage or willingness to engage on these new platforms where other candidates just wouldn't.
And especially for a guy who is not known for being very tech savvy. I mean, he didn't send emails ever. To have him jump on these newer platforms.
Has he still not sent an email? He just sends
That's what he says. I don't know if he does now or not. Probably. I'm sure at this point he has to have sent some emails, right? But before that, he didn't send any. I guess that was part of the problem with their investigations. They don't have any. He doesn't have any email trail.
No paper trail. No email trail. Yeah, right. I guess. Man.
Well, so let's. I'm going to wrap it up here because the connection's a little wonky. And we've covered a lot of ground, though. We've talked Guatemala, Venezuela, Cuba, Canada, the United States. We've really covered a good amount of territories here. And man, it's been awesome having you on. I'll have to have you on again, but we'll try to do it a regular thing.
Yeah, I would love to. Look, I just want to say that I really appreciate your show, and I hope Lions of Liberty, that this network for shows keep rising. And I really am enjoying the fact that your influence is growing as well, because you're getting all these candidates on. It's kind of becoming like a home for a broader group of people in the libertarian movement, which is really nice. And
well, thank you, man. And I look forward to the Antigua Report continuing to grow and thrive, even as you start your whatever new degree you're going to be getting in finance or whatever
who knows, you take. We'll keep rolling. Anyway,
but for sure. And of course, we'll help and promote the shit out of it when we can as well. So remind everybody again where they can read you, where they can listen to you, and I will link to all of these in the show notes, which everybody can find at lionsofliberty.com/ELL88.
Sure. The best place to go is Twitter, just Ferg Hodgson. That's FergHodgson. And then if you want to follow my work, go to AntiguaReport.com, and you can get a monthly email release, which is a compilation of everything. So it's not too often. And I'd really love, more people to be involved and to give me story ideas. I'm glad to have feedback.
All right, there you go, everybody. So once again, Fergus, awesome talking to you, man. Finally get to sit down and chat. And I thank you for being on the show, and thank you for all of the fine work you're doing forwarding the cause of liberty.
Thank you, man. Cheers, bro.
Yes.
Cheers.
So that'll do it with my interview with Fergus Hodgson of the Antigua Report. I really enjoy his writing quite a bit, and I encourage everybody, please do check that out. Get on the mailing list and make sure that's one of the sites that you frequent, especially if you're looking for a lot of foreign policy input on the Latin America, Central America, South America region. I would say Fergus is the Scott Horton of Latin America, which, of course, is fairly high praise, if we're being honest. But while you're going to check out Fergus, make sure you check out our other podcasts here on the Lions of Liberty Network, as Fergus has cited it. And one of the few people that have actually given that moniker. I guess we are becoming somewhat of our own network here, and I'll take that on. So Mark Claire, of course, with his interviews on Mondays with leaders of the Libertarian movement. John Odie Odermatt with Felony Fridays every Friday, coming at you with the worst of the American criminal justice system. And, of course, me on Wednesdays with Electric Liberty Land. And in regards to Electric Liberty Land, as regular listeners of the show know, I got pretty fucking drunk last week during the show, in advance of the show. It was a real shit show of a show, which is enjoyable. Don't get me wrong. I regret nothing, as per usual. However, there is one thing that I do rue and lament, and that is, in my drunkenness, I kept saying that Larry Sharpe was running for mayor of New York. Of course, woke up the next day and went, shit. So, of course, Larry Sharpe's running for governor of New York. And I usually don't bother with corrections and retractions, but that one annoyed the shit out of me so badly that I had to say something. Alcohol. What can it do to ruin my life? Anyway, guys, that's it for me, Brian McWilliams, and Electric Liberty Land. So for me, for the Lions of Liberty, from ELL, always stay plugged into Liberty.